well, let's talk to this. Like, was there a moment where you felt like, oh, I'm cool? Not like, oh, I'm a cool person, I'm hip and everything, but like, my life is cool and this is really comfortable to where like, I could live like this right now. Like, I'm doing Sideman, I've got a salary coming in, I've got these gigs. I'm like a bass player on the scene. Was there ever that? Or was it always like, this is great, but what's next?
God, that's a good question. I always sort of feel like if there is something that feels stable, exciting, too good to be true, I'm kind of it's odd. I think I'm sort of a doomsday guy. I think I have a reputation for being outgoing and happy and positive, but I have like a real dystopian nightmare. Like in my mind,
percolating in the background.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
And so I sort of find that my bulldoze through my trajectory of music is to sort of stave that off.
Okay.
I think if I'm being honest, I don't know that I've ever said like, oh, now, perfect.
I've arrived.
I've
So,
arrived. No, I don't think so.
I don't think it's even in that sense. I just see a lot of people, and I think actually it works for some. Let's look at the absolute extreme version of that in a bass player like someone like Nathan East.
Yes.
He came very late to the artist thing. I'm guessing, I remember when the record came out, he had to be in his 50s by the time it happened. But he had this ridiculous career.
Of course.
And it worked for him and has always worked, and he's super happy. And that superseded the need to be an artist.
Yes.
And then go on the opposite side and like Leyland Sklar.
Right. Great
Well,
example.
no, actually, that's not the opposite side. That's even more extreme because Leyland's never made a solo record.
Right. Yep.
Look at Jacko. Look at the amount of records he played on as a sideman.
Yes.
It is not that he made hundreds of records as a band leader, but he wasn't the most prolific sideman for the legend that he was.
That's true.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And so much of, to my ear anyway, so much of Weather Report, so he was an identity. It was almost like a solo project in a way.
I know.
At least co-led, of course, and
Yes.
co-written.
Yes.
You know.
Metheny, Joni.
There you go.
They
Now
sound
we're talking
like
yes.
Jocko still, though,
Yeah.
right? Like he sounds like Jocko. Do you find that has happened to you as a sideman? Or like, because you're talking about someone like Jaco Pastorius who was never trying to be a chameleon.
Right.
Let me ask you this.
Okay.
Because I'm so fascinated by this. Was there a time where you were trying to be a chameleon and, hey, Dashiell, my son just popped in.
Hey.
What's up, D?
I just wanted to say, me and Mom are going on a walk with Ginger.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Have a great time, buddy.
We'll be back in like 30 minutes.
Okay.
This is a first for the podcast. I freaking love it.
Oh, it's
Sorry.
great. Yeah, my son popped in and just said he was taking the dog for a walk. Amazing.
I can't wait till my daughter can put a sentence together like that. It's going to be the cutest thing ever. She can interrupt whenever.
Yeah, I feel like there was a time for me actually where I was like, if the door is closed. But then after a while, I was like, that sucks. Like, I'm never doing actually anything more important
Right.
than if my son wants to come say a quick hi.
I got to say, like as a parent now, I'm trying to think like how I would have reacted to that. I wouldn't have said, "Hey, get the hell out of it, kid." Yeah. But it is a totally different feeling. I would have been totally cool with it without a kid.
Sure.
But it's an extra feeling now.
Yes.
Having a kid of like, not only is that okay, that's awesome.
I know.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah.
Yeah, dude, I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, because before kids, you're just about you. Oh my
Yeah.
God! Hold
And
on,
what's happening
child.
in your
this
immediate-
is a gig.
yeah.
This is
Yeah.
a gig or a
Right.
thing that I'm doing that's very important,
Right.
more important than your need.
Right.
And then after you have kids, it's sort of
Complete opposite.
yeah.
Wow. So yeah.
I want to ask you about being a chameleon because Jaco was never one.
Right.
To my knowledge, maybe he was very early, right? Playing funk gigs in Florida or whatever. But
Wayne Cochran and the CC Riders. I mean, that's
yeah, I suppose.
Rocco Prestia says he was. Jacko says Rocco was an influence, so he was definitely into that funk thing. And Jerry Jamal,
Yes.
he was. But he never put out records that sound like Motown records.
Yes,
you know what I mean.
Yeah, right.
He comes close to it with the Sam and Dave thing with "Come On, Come Over."
Yeah,
That's like an homage to
but
that.
It's still, that B section is so Jaco, right?
Absolutely. And he's moving forwards
Yes.
with his own music. That's a very brief moment on the same record as freaking Donna Lee with
Right.
Don Elias. So yeah.
I have always wanted to be a side musician.
Okay.
And only recently started to have designs on being my own artist, putting my own name on something. Ian Martin Allison. It's always been band projects
Right.
or side musician. But when I hear you, so I have been in this chameleon nature of like, in the beginning, I was like, you're never going to know if I can slap because I'll never do it on your gig. You're never going to know if I can play with a pick because I'll never do it on your gig. Right. I can do those things, but I'll never show it. Right. So I was really intrigued by chameleon. But when I see you inspired me in a way when I saw you, because you had a vision, an artistic approach, a way that you approached your sound,
Okay.
your life that felt pretty singular and intentional and the antithesis of chameleon. Am I correct?
Yeah, I guess so. Like, I never had designs to be Mark King,
Right.
or Marcus Miller, you know.
But did you have designs to be like someone that you couldn't even tell? Like, did you ever want to fade into a record? And
Yeah.
you're like, I don't know who the hell that is playing bass. Did you ever want to do that?
No, I always thought the most important thing was sound.
Yeah.
Like long before I knew it, long before my mantra of time and sound over everything, I always knew the most important thing was sound, because you can hear two notes of Mike Stern and you know it's Mike. You can hear
Right.
two notes of John Coltrane, you know, one note. You don't even need rhythm, and you know that it's that person.
And
So
that was that was pinnacle for you.
absolutely, there
Yes.
was nothing more important than that. And it never stops either. And there are times where, like, you know, I have the weirdest approach to it as well, because I play the brightest strings, DR high beams,
Sure.
and I change them every 3 days. I'm a psycho about it, but I have quite a dark sound. And a lot
yes,
of people
right.
have said, actually, it's a really dark sound. I don't, this, whatever, that's subjective, but that is also something that sometimes I'm like, I hate everything that is coming out of
Really?
my bass right now. Yeah. And want to completely change it, and want to have a completely hollow body and play tape wound flats, fretless. Also, just something so completely different.
Yes.
You know? So I've always been a massive fan of throw it all in the trash can and put some gasoline and put the match in
Yeah.
to everything.
Wow.
Put all the albums in the trash, burn it, and forget it ever happened. Something I heard really early on was a Miles Davis interview, kind of late 80s or early 90s, right before he died, and he said he hadn't listened to any of his records that he had ever made
Wow.
to that point. Like, somebody said, so what do you think about Cooking, Relaxing, and the 4 records on Prestige from back in the day?
remember.
Said, I don't know. It's 40 years ago. What do you want?
Right.
You know?
Right.
I was like, oh, that's good. That's honesty.
Yes.
I guess more than the sound and this and that and the other, the only thing is honesty, really.
Right. Sure.
You know?
Yep.
So however that manifests itself, whether that's in a singular sound,
Right.
or whether that's in a bunch of different things, I think it's the honesty thing.
But then how do you, because you were just, before we started this, you were talking about like, playing that RKM bass
Yeah.
on videos because people like to see a 4-string. And
Sure.
I know that deal.
Yeah.
Because when at SBL too, like when we've made thumbnails that have a 6 or a 5 in
Right.
it, we feel that it somehow excludes, or people are felt
Sure.
that they're being excluded when they're not.
Absolutely not.
But people feel that way. But I also remember, you having that Music Master, black nylons,
Yep.
that session, right, with John Mayer.
Yep.
And how do you justify then? Do you feel like you're giving something up when you're playing a bass that isn't like your solo voice bass?
No.
Okay.
This video we're going to shoot later on is going to be very interesting for that. This is like the perfect setup for that. And now I've also just committed to us really doing it after the
good,
podcast.
good.
But
I love it.
no, that's something that, like, I would be so precious.
Yeah.
And I think this is going to be a good theme of that video that we want to shoot with all these basses of yours, is I used to be so precious. I'd be on tour with whoever. Let's say it was a pop thing and not a jazz thing, and I'd be itching at night off in Paris. I'd be itching. I'd call Hadrian, let's go to a jam session. Boom. and I'd have my Federa, and I'd have my delay pedal, and I'd
Yes.
have my thing, and I'd go to the jam session, and I'd be
Right.
that pain in the ass who took 5 minutes to set up. No, stop, until I'm ready.
Ah, yeah,
Well,
yeah, yeah.
no.
Yes.
And then we got to play a tune that I know, because I
So I
was
can
so
sound like me.
Yeah, so I can sound like me, and I was so scared about the ear and rep. It's like 20 years ago, like early days, and when Hadrian was still living in Paris, a long time ago now. And I'd be so wrapped up in that and so precious about that thing.
Yes.
And I was like, I don't get to have any fun. This is not fun. I have to carry all this shit with me. I have to go out. I want to go out to the hotel room with my jacket, and my wallet.
Yeah, I know what
And
you
go
mean.
hang with the cats. And if we play, we play. If we don't, we don't. Who
Right.
gives a fuck?
Right.
And eventually I was like, I used to have like a lot of basses sitting around my house
Yes.
before I sold them all
Sure.
last year. I had 20 basses sitting there. I'd be like, all right, I'm going to practice a different bass every single day and practice all my own shit, but on a Fender P bass with nylon tapes. So I just washed all of that away. And that's the whole thing as well. Like, I know we differ greatly on gear and packing and touring and
Sure.
the way we
Yeah, yeah,
travel,
yeah.
so which is totally cool.
Yes.
It's not a bad thing.
Right.
Everyone does it differently. But that was part of the thing of like, also, I don't care about the $15,000 bass.
Sure.
I just don't anymore.
Right.
I really, if it gets delayed, it gets delayed. If it gets broken, it's just a fucking piece of wood.
It almost gives you an opportunity, if I'm not wrong, to have an unexpected thing happen.
100%.
And you feel the flex is not a flex. The confidence is
Yeah.
that you're Yannick
challenge.
Gwizdala, the challenge.
Yeah, the fun you eventually had that
Yes.
you never saw coming.
Interesting.
You cannot possibly predict.
Yes. Yes.
Your bass gets delayed. What bass is coming?
And you
Like-
and you have the best gig that you've had in 2 years
Yeah.
on the Squire
100%.
P bass that someone brought. But
Happened
the
in-
action wasn't to your liking or whatever. But
yeah.
you have low expectations. You have fun.
Last
There's
time it happened,
surprises.
tour manager booked a stupid connection through an airport that we didn't need to be going to. Bass got delayed, got to Madrid, no bass. And we're like landing in Madrid at 4, gig at 9. I have a good friend there, Adrian Bartol Molina, great bass player, Spanish bass player. Called him. I said, hey, man, you got a P bass? I go, bro. He was coming to the show anyway.
Oh.
Put his lady on the list as well. He bought the
Great.
bass. It's so good. Played all Bob Reynolds music with a 4-string, and everyone's looking at me like, oh, this is cool, man. Like the band, like this is totally different.
Right. Different vibe.
And totally cool.
Right.
Like nothing to worry about. So that thing of checking the bass, that's something that gives me confidence in doing that.
Right.
Because I've sort of trained myself, I've been to therapy for that. Personally.
Is that right? Yeah.
No.
Yes.
I mean, in my own head, I've
Yeah,
sort
sure.
of given myself a therapy session just by playing different instruments, building more confidence. Like almost at the end of every video I make now, I try and hit home like, guys, everything I've said in this video is about 2 things only. It's about having more confidence when you play. It's about having more fun when you're playing live. That's it. Doesn't matter what we just talked about. Those are the 2 things. So just
Right.
remember those. And that was one of the things that helped me. Like, if I check the bases, it's all right,
Your sound then
Yeah.
for you.
So now this is very important.
Yeah.